In the last 2 years, more than 1,000 laws that seek to restrict the rights of our community have been introduced. Instead of working to make housing more affordable, or helping increase healthcare access, or making our water or our air cleaner, some lawmakers are focused on taking away rights on our community, making more difficult to access to care, and being identified by our preferred pronouns. We're here to demand that Congress pass legislation that will protect our LGBTQ+ communities from these attacks rooted in hate. We are also here today because an important aspect of these efforts is precisely to bring people into spaces that they have been excluded from and they have never been invited to, or that they're only invited during 1 month out of the year. Some of the communities represented here had never been or never had the opportunity to discuss their experience with members of Congress, to provide their viewpoint on proposed legislation, and to propose changes. That's why we're being so intentional about this effort. Our lives and our rights are at stake this election cycle. We cannot afford to only give visibility to these issues during 1 month out of the year. We have to fight for our rights every single day. And we will continue to fight at the state level against all of these discriminatory bills that are being proposed, but the sheer number of bills passed in the last 2 years makes it clear that Congress must act. Congress has the responsibility to grant federal protections against these measures and to help fulfill the promise of a more perfect union. And now I am extremely proud to introduce a member of Congress, Representative Chacano.
Thank you. Thank you. Gracias.
Gracias.
Buenos días a todos. Un placer ser aquí. It's a pleasure to be here today, curing LGBTQ+ equality. Last month was Pride, and I celebrated by bringing attention to the Equality Act, a bill that I introduced for Democrats. This landmark piece of legislation would update to protect the LGBTQ+ community, passed under the leadership of Speaker Pelosi, but House Republicans have refused to even hold a vote. Instead of advancing legislation, they're putting them among us in the crosshairs. Republicans pushed more than 50 LGBTQ+ votes, ranging from attacks on transgender to bans on pride flags. Sadly, colleagues are trying to this agenda of division, but we cannot and will not back down. We will keep coming together to support, not just as the lead on the 9 LGBT members, also represent have more. The Hispanic Federation, we understand that we support the dignity so do Americans. Back over to Frankie. Say, Frankie. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And so part of today's opportunity to community-based organizations to speak directly to Congress about their experience. Sir Dusty Gurule, the President and CEO of COLOR, Colorado Organization for Latina Opportunity and Reproductive Rights.
Bravo! Thank you. Whew. Great to be here with you all. Thank you so much. A little bit about COLOR. COLOR is the only Latina-led multi-entity reproductive justice organization in Colorado. We work at the intersections of where our community lives. Our fights are often the fights makers overlook or do not do the necessary strategic analysis to lessen the disproportionate impacts to our communities. Sometimes those negative impacts are intended, and we must fight back collectively. This year we led on opposing a bill that could have impacted our state shield law and would have given warrantless access to data to law enforcement as it relates to illicit substances and trafficking, which in states includes MIFI and mifepristone, and gender-affirming care, and helping someone access it. We must work to ensure those people making decisions hear from all of the voices in our communities. We must be bold and challenge those forces who seek to harm, to keep our communities in the shadows. In 2021, Colod launched, in partnership with Voces Unidas, the Colorado Latino Policy Agenda, our state's largest poll of Latinos, to hear from our community on the issues that are important to them and to bring their voices to the decision makers. It is here that we see the support of our community has for the issues at our intersections. 80% of our community support proactive policies for long-term immigrants. Over 60% support protecting and expanding abortion care. And we are leading on a ballot measure this year to update our Constitution to protect abortion rights and remove funding barriers, including for people on Medicaid. Our work continues to expand coverage for our community, regardless of documentation, through a bill that we passed in 2021 to create a new state program to provide contraception regardless of documentation status. Our data from 2023 also showed that close to 70% support marriage equality. And our partner, One Colorado, led on a referred ballot measure through the legislature this year to enshrine the freedom to marry in our state's constitution. Enacting policy and advancing the issues that empower our communities continue before, during, and after the final votes on any bill policy. We know that Colorado will continue to work to change the systems, policies, and also who is making those decisions that impacts our lives. Elections matter, plain and simple.
Yes.
The work in our states is critical, and we are doing it in Colorado, but we cannot and will not underestimate the power of our congressional members and our executive branch to act, to speak up and out for our communities. We listen, we remember, and we vote. Now I'd like to introduce Nicole Santamaria from El La Para Trans Latina.
Woo, Nicole!
The Pride Month just passed, and while we were celebrating Pride Month, we lost many participants. Here at Ela para Trans Latina, back in San Francisco, the iconic LGBTQI city in the world, we are losing members for the LGBTQI community, but in particular, the trans, intersex, and gender diverse community. We are representing here not only San Francisco Bay Area, but also the Deep South that is facing the worst penalties and the worst bills and persecution for their identities and denying who they are. And being persecuted just for being there, just for being them, and having triple persecution for their gender identity, immigration status, and for not being able to speak the language. So, a little bit of me at Ela para Trans Latinas. We are, as community, we also have, as many Latinos, Latinas, and Latinas, communities of faith. We have faith, right? And also that is the root of our hope in this time of challenge. St. Augustine said that happiness is you desiring what we. That makes me think on why millions of immigrants, including the fathers and mothers of this nation, that migrated to this country from England, from Scottish, from Italy, from Ireland, etc., and they built this country, immigrants as well.
Yes. Yes.
So I imagine what they found, what they saw, what possibilities they saw in this country, in this land, to build a country that they could be happy for them and their families. So as an indigenous woman myself, an immigrant myself, I just see those opportunities for my people, not for a heterosexual immigrant community, but all communities, with all colors of our skin, with all the languages that we speak, and all the forms and shapes that we are built. So I know that we have now is not perfect, but we are still thriving and we're still trying to flourish in this country. We have walked a long way to have the rights we have to this date, and that's why we are here to continue protecting and get better what we have already won, because nobody has given us for granted.
Right. Yes,
we have won it. We have women's rights to vote, because it seems that many people forget that. The opportunity to own a land, being a woman, regardless, being woman and marital status. But also, we have already forgotten the amount of blood that we have shed in this country and worldwide.
Yes.
Beyond of all the categories of being citizens or not, we are talking about rooted human nature, human needs to be seen and be recognized as human beings, and not get denied for the color of our skins, the country of our regions, the language that we speak. We are not talking about safety and protection for just the LGBTQI+ community, for trans, intersex, and gender diverse community. We are talking about women's rights,
Yes.
the sexual and reproductive rights.
Yes.
We are talking about immigrant rights. And we are talking that at the very root of this threat to our rights lies an unseen threat to all human rights. All human rights. And human beings in this great nation, the Constitution is based in freedom, safety, and equality. Forget our real human nature. To see ourselves in the other side and help us. Help each other. Help each other at the moment of vote. For those who cannot vote. So we can stand,
Yes.
and we can be the voice of the voiceless, for the voice of those who want to be kept in silent in the shadows. So we can build a safer country and a safer place, not for LGBTQI+, not just for women, not just for immigrants, for all human beings inhabiting this land that it has borrowed for our native siblings. We are all immigrants here in this country, and we are using this country shared and also taken away from our indigenous sibling. So we can build a more human, a more just, a more compassionate towards all living creatures, but also let's do it together. Thank you so much.
Wow. Wow. And before we close, I want to bring to the podium Debo Ostowitz from Hope Center.
Thank you. Just really briefly about Hope Community Center. We were founded a little over 50 years ago when a group of social justice-minded Catholic nuns came to Central Florida to live their faith through action. So we were built on faith. The idea that our hearts should be wider than the world, which is the idea of the sisters of Notre Dame de Namur that founded us. Through that, we mean that everybody is welcome and everybody is loved. Just as Jesus said, loving thy neighbor is just like loving God. So from a place of faith, there is no reason to treat anyone without love. So I'm very confused about what happens here and what happens around various states when it comes to how we treat LGBTQ individuals of all intersections. At Hope Community Center, we work majority with immigrants. So now you have people who suffer in silence within their own communities because they are both immigrant and they are LGBTQ. It doesn't make sense in a nation that is supposed to be built on welcoming, on growth, on faith, on love. It doesn't make sense that we would pass laws around the states that are exactly the opposite of all of that. In Florida, we have, as I'm sure everybody is aware, we have passed several laws that prohibit talking about your gender if you are a public school student. We have laws that say they can't talk about gender history and black history in the universities. We have laws that say that our gender siblings are not able to get medical care unless it is given in some very strict guidelines which limits that care. When this happened, people who had been getting care for years suddenly couldn't. Imagine you're taking life-saving medication and suddenly you don't have access to it anymore. Just imagine that. You don't have to be transgender to understand how that affects you. To have your life-saving medication taken away from you. That's what has been happening in Florida. We're also, in Florida, we like to say that parents should have the right to choose what their kids do in school and things like that. And at the same time, Florida wants to take away the right for parents to work with medical professionals to decide what is the best course of action for their children when it comes to their transgender affirming care. So, Florida's a very difficult place to be. Hope Community Center has tried to be a safe haven. We've started support groups for queer trans immigrants. We created the very first Pride event at Hope Community Center. Hope is just a few miles away from Orlando, Florida, where all but 5 of the victims of Pulse tragedy were from the Latina community, and the majority of those were also from the immigrant community. We're in a place where we know what it's like to be hated and mistreated and abused, and to rise up from that and make changes and make a difference. We have a mayor who wears a shirt that says protect trans kids. That didn't come out of nowhere. That came out of advocacy and work. And that is why we're here, because we can make a difference one step at a time. In Florida, we can make a difference one step at a time here too. We already have a couple of those bills have been had some injunctions ruled against them. So, but it took a year to have that happen. We need help now. This is what's going on right here and now, and that's why we're here. And we can do this. Yes. I believe in all of us. Yes. Si se puede. Si se puede. Si se puede. Si se puede. ¿Se puede? Claro que sí. Claro que sí. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Do we have any questions? Nope? Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
No. Let's go to the shade.